Coming up, the Planetary Resources Kickstarter's in its final stretch.
We've got a couple of launches.
Atlantis exhibit is nearly 3 weeks away from opening. Plus, we ask you, is government the best way for us to get to Mars? All that and a whole lot more on Spacevidcast Live, Season 6, Episode 16. It's a trap! And welcome to Spacevidcast, episode 6.16 for Saturday, June 8th, 2013. I totally just cheated right there. I don't know if you saw. I looked down. I'm like, I don't know what day it is.
I saw it.
My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, the beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented Carrie Ann Higginbotham. We will be your hosts for this episode today. Let's go ahead and get started right away. There is a boatload of space news. As you may remember, last week we talked a lot about crowdfunding your own space program with the Kickstarter program for planetary resources. Well, they have made it nearly all the way in about a week. Check this out. They're at $813,000 as of this show, and that number continues to climb. There are 22 days left. They need to raise $1 million. $1 million. That's what they need to raise in the next 22 days. And to help them do that, they've actually brought out a new what's that called? Level? I don't know what to call that.
Yeah, well, it's like a pledge level.
Pledge level, I don't know. Which allows you to get 5 of your digital selfies on the Arcade. By the way, Star Wars reference and awesome, guys. Well played. But you get 5 digital selfies. Basically, the satellite is going up. It's one of their fleet. It's going up with a digital screen on it and a digital camera, and they can upload your picture to the screen, so you can have your picture, and then the camera, and in the background you'll have like the Earth in space, right? So your picture in space taken by a space telescope on a space camera, you get 5 of those, and it's for realsy space. It's not composited against the Earth.
Right.
That's the actual Earth in the background with your digital picture on the thing. It's going to be pretty freaking cool. So you get 5 of those, and I think that's scroll down. What is that? $150?
I believe so.
So the goal is to get as many people, 125 friends and family pack, 125. The goal is to get them to the $1 million mark by, what is it, this coming Monday?
They have 22 days to go.
Yeah, but we want to make it well before then, right?
Well,
if they can make it, the sooner they can make it, the more stuff they'll be able to throw in kind of as added extras. So this is an awesome program. This is something that other people can get excited about because it allows you to tie in your picture, your stuff in space, and you can see what's going on. You can even, depending upon the level, you can even choose to point the telescope at different celestial objects other than the sun and actually take pictures. So you can control a space telescope. Now understand, this is the telescope that they're launching for the world to use. They have a lot more telescopes, and the reason like $1 million doesn't sound like it's enough money is because it's not. The $1 million is for this telescope. They have a fleet that's going up that will be searching for asteroids. This is simply the one that allows you to take control of it, and so they want to give the community access to this telescope, and that's what the $1 million costs, basically getting this one particular telescope up there. So
amazing.
Hit out the link inside of our show notes, and please pledge, tell your family and friends to pledge. Let's get them to $1 million as fast as possible. Also up on Space Ref, the NRC committee, which is the National Research Council Committee on Human Spaceflight, is looking for input. They're basically asking, what do you think humans' role in space will be?
Right.
And Vax Headroom in our chat room and of Spacevidcast fame actually wrote me and said, hey, look, I think this would be a good Spacevidcast project. We as a community should get together, write a quick paper. It is due in July 9th, so we don't have a lot of time. But if someone wouldn't mind, on behalf of Spacevidcast or on behalf of anyone, let's maybe start a Google Doc and get a bunch of input from a bunch of different people as to what human spaceflight should mean and submit it. Yeah. I think everyone's voice is important. Mm-hmm. So having our voice heard and saying having humans in space is good, having robots in space is good, right. Having everything in space is good, well, yeah. I think is an awesome thing. I can't run with this particular project, but I know that a lot of you are very passionate about this as well, and I'd love to work with you and give you the resources necessary to make this happen. So contact me, benjamin@spacevidcast.com or epic@spacevidcast.com, and we'll figure out how to collaborate and make some sort of epic document of epicness that inspires you to explore the cosmos. I'm going to skip the next story, and we're just going to go to ATV-4. That is Albert Einstein, if I remember correctly, has launched to the International Space Station. And here's the neat thing. No matter what happens with SpaceX in the future, they have instilled one thing on launch providers, and that is to make music videos of their launches. It's something that no one had really done before, and now everyone seems to do. So here you are.
So great, though.
Here you are, a music video made to you by ESA for ATV-4.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. Allumage EAP, décollage.
The single Vulcan core stage burning with the boosters. The boosters are going to burn for another 4 or 5 seconds, and then they will be extinguished, and you'll see them probably, looks like the extinction of the boosters. You can see them falling away on either side. The orange lights are the boosters flailing out, and the single point of light in the middle of your screen is Ariane continuing to burn. There's the good news. Separation of the ATV. And right on target. 270 kilometers.
And there you go. So that's that was their video that actually continues for a little while longer. You can hit that up on ESA's video channel. ATV automated transfer vehicle, and that is what supplies cargo to the International Space Station. Much needed resupply missions to our floating laboratory in space. Also launched this last week was SES-6. That is a International Launch Services Proton rocket, which, by the way, is was it Dutta? Did you mention this? It was a very beautiful vehicle. And the SES-6 is a communication satellite. It's actually replacing another one. So here, not a music video, but here you go. Here's a quick overview of the launch.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition start. We have liftoff of an ILS Proton rocket from pad 39 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan with the SES-6 satellite on board.
And just beautiful, gorgeous launch, beautiful daytime. Just looks nice, and then it kind of disappears off in the clouds. They get some other nice tracking shots, but there you go. SES-6 on its way to its spot in the constellation for additional services over in, I believe that's Europe. Additionally, Atlantis is well on its way to becoming an exhibit. Here's a mock-up of what Atlantis, Space Shuttle Atlantis is going to look like at the Kennedy Space Center. Check this out. So it's in its space configuration, kind of tipped on its side. That's how they had it pictured, right? That's obviously a rendering. But here is a picture of what it actually looks like. There you go. There it is with the Hubble kind of in, well, I'm air quoting, you can't see it, Hubble. A satellite. It's a deployed something. Yeah. I said Hubble, but he deployed something. And also, we've got a nice side view, I think. Check that out. That's what it actually looks like for realsies with the bay doors open, the
So
arm
amazing.
extended. I just think that looks absolutely gorgeous. That's 3 weeks away from opening at the Kennedy Space Center down in Florida. So that's coming along nicely, and I'm really, really excited for being able to see that. Atlantis being my favorite orbiter of all time.
Well, it looks so close that you could almost touch it. Robert Perlman went down and had a chance to see it sort of ahead of time, and he's leaning over ever so slightly the railing, and he's easily like this far away. But like that's it. I mean,
Yep.
that's it. You really do feel like you could just touch it.
Yep.
It's craziness.
And let's not forget the other orbiters are getting ready to be displayed as well. Not quite as soon as Atlantis. Space Shuttle Endeavour is here at the California Science Center. It is actually on display, but not in its final configuration. It will be in a launch configuration. Atlantis will be in a working configuration, as it was. It was the everyone doesn't call it the workhorse of the fleet, but I'm going to call it the workhorse of the fleet. And then we have Space Shuttle Discovery, which is at Wheel Stop, and that's in. I don't remember where Discovery is located.
Really?
Yeah.
It's in Virginia.
Smithsonian in Virginia. And then we've also got Enterprise in New York, and then the shuttle carrier aircraft in Texas. So there you go. That's everything's going on there. Before we go to break, let's head over to Mojave with Douglas Messier of Parabolic Arc and actually get a quick update as to what's happening in Mojave. Douglas, welcome back to Spacevidcast.
Thanks for having me again. And everything that happened, not much happened in Mojave this week because everybody was out in Denver for the suborbital, Next Generation Suborbital Researchers Conference. And there was a big announcement made by Lori Garver, who spoke to the group via video. And she announced that NASA will consider launching people on the funding researchers on suborbital flights instead of just payloads. And previously it had just been payloads. So that was a big announcement coming out of Denver, actually. And also the big thing is that Flight Opportunities Program, the program that handles that, is gearing up for their first campaign with Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two. That should happen in sometime next year, and they have bought an entire flight for experiments. So it's a big news coming out of Denver this week.
Awesome. Hey, Douglas, thank you so much for joining us, giving us our quick Mojave minute, as it were, even though it wasn't from Mojave.
Okay.
Regardless, thank you. So, anything else that happened? Mojave was pretty silent, though, right? Because you were in Denver.
Yeah, I think White Knight 2 is flying around this week, what I heard. Also, I believe that Maston was doing some tests yesterday. I'm not sure what sort of tests, might have been tether tests. And if the stories I heard are true, they may be flying Spaceship Two again later this month, depending upon how things are going. What their plan was to tear down the spaceship after that powered flight at the end of April, and then check every nut and bolt in the thing and all the connections, and then begin flying again sometime in June and begin to fly at a higher pace. So.
Well, they've got to step it up because Richard Branson, I believe, is looking to do his own first flight on December 24th or 25th. I don't remember which. So, I mean, they got a lot of work ahead of him if they're going to make that date.
Yeah, they claim he says they're going to fly by Christmas, but nobody here believes that unless they really fly a lot in the next few months. And so we'll see. I think this is another very optimistic projection from Sir Richard, but maybe they'll surprise everybody.
Awesome. Hey, Douglas, thank you so much for joining us from parabolicarc.com. You can get a lot more information about what's going on over there at parabolicarc.com. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, main topic is government funding, our best chance of getting to Mars, or is it the private company? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, so here we are taking the Saturn V model off of the build plate. Have to glue that back together. This is not grape Poupon, as you might imagine. This is actually acetone. Can't get him inside of there. I'm just going to dip my finger in the acetone. This is only 3/4 scale of the original model. That's as tall as I could print on my Thingomatic. Actually, you get a little thin film of plastic on your finger, which snapping this. Well, let's see which parts go where. I'm a rocket geek, I ought to know that, right? Hey, I know this is the bottom and this is the top. When you actually show this to people, only from here up. Here to here is all the part where humans were, and that's the only part, that little conical section right there is the only part that came back to Earth. There's the finished Saturn V. This is 3/4 scale of the snap-fit model that's on Thingiverse. Thanks. Have fun with the MakerBots. This is a great piece of technology.
I absolutely love I hope we get to be able to do more of those. For those who don't know, building with Vax, with Vax Headroom. Vax is a longtime space vidcaster and for realsies rocket scientist.
Yes.
He actually was part of the L-Cross program. And I very much so enjoyed making that particular commercial.
Yeah, you were giggling.
I was giggling like a little girl.
Yes.
Absolutely the whole time. A couple, before we go into our main topic of requiring governments or private space to get us to the Mars, Moon, beyond, so forth and so on. There were a couple comments from when we were in our last segment from the live chat room saying things like, if we're going to do a collaborated document, why not use the wiki that Spacevidcast already has? So yeah, we'll probably do that. Again,
right.
Just contact me and we'll figure out how to make all that go. We'll use whatever cool tools we can. This week's main topic actually came from a comment in last week's show. And the comment was from Bill1275W. And Dada, I didn't tell you I was doing this. There you go. That's the one. I'll bet anyone on here, a Chris Benjamin, that Kickstarter goes nowhere. Only government funding will get us off this rock before we get visited by another planet killer. We have to stand up to Congress and make them stop cutting space exploration to give tax cuts for people who don't need them. Big government spending is the only way, which is why China's catching up with their own space station and why the only way to orbit is on a Soviet craft. So, I was going to put that in the comments of the show, and I was going to say, no, it's not the only way. And then I got to thinking, what are my real arguments against this here?
And he's concerned because his name is Benjamin.
It is, so you can't give me away. So the two sides of this are, historically, the only way we've gotten to another alien body, which the only way humans have ever done that is once in the Apollo era. That is the only real time we've actually done that, was huge government money.
Right.
Billions and billions of dollars, massive amount of effort that is on a scale that private companies probably just can't do. Right? So if you want to do that again, the logical argument is you're going to need that big government spending again. You're going to need to do it on that big scale, especially if you want to put humans on Mars. So then you can look at companies like SpaceX or Orbital or whomever, right? I know that there are a lot of even really tiny companies, space companies, that have their sights squarely set on Mars. And you could, they could start trying to put humans on Mars as well, and maybe they do it in a different way, right? The government was a big scale because that's all the government really knows how to do. They don't do nimble and fast and sleek and low cost. They do big behemoth things. But what if you gave it to private industry? Could they do it? And I'm going back and forth on this. I don't actually know. So SpaceX has contracts with NASA.
Right.
Do you consider that? Does it mean then that they're taking?
Is that still NASA?
So right. So now is SpaceX considered a big government thing, or is it because the contracts are aligned completely differently than traditional cost plus contracts? Is it just another customer to SpaceX?
Right.
So does that count? And does it even have to be SpaceX? Maybe it'll be Mast and Space Systems that goes to Mars first, right? Why does it have to be one of these? So do we need big government to get us to Mars? Specifically humans, right? Robots, I think we're going to see kickstarting planetary resources. Perfect example, right? They're not robots, but they're essentially a step behind robots, right? They're telescopes that can be controlled from the ground. You don't need much more to add robot. It probably actually could be classified as a robot, right? So, pretty much already there. Kickstarter program, that'll probably be a success. Very good faith, very high level of faith in that. But humans in space, totally different. So what do you think? Big government, private industry, or other?
Well, I think it's interesting that he very specifically points to China, right? That China is catching up with their own space station, and that's one of the reasons that China's catching up, I guess, China is what really kind
Are
of
they, though?
caught my ear there with that one. And that, is pointing to big government spending in China, and that China's catching up to the U.S. so far with their own space station and this, that,
But
and the
who's
other.
ahead right now, China or SpaceX?
Well, it feels to me, and again, I'm an American, I've lived here all my life. It's basically my only perspective. I do try to keep my mind open to other things, but those are my limitations at the moment. I don't feel as though China is really catching up all of that quickly. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if they really are having big government spending in China, I feel like they should be further than they are right now then. It's not like 10 years ago they were like, hey guys, you know what we should do? We should totally catch up to the Americans. And then in 10 years they have a space station and spacewalks and all of that sort of thing.
But is the space station really catching up, right? I mean, to truly
I
catch up
guess.
to the American space program,
Even
you
if it
need
is
to put
catching up, it's not going beyond, right? Like we're talking about getting beyond what we've already done. And it feels to me that if somebody really wants it that badly, if a big government really wants to do it that badly and they're willing to throw lots of money at it, that yeah, they should be leaps and bounds further down the road than what we are and they are right now.
But
See what
maybe
I'm saying?
government is inefficient inherently, at least our government, by design, right? It's not good or bad. It's by design.
It is right now, but I mean, you're talking about like the Apollo era, and I don't know the structure of China's government. I don't even pretend to be. But you want anything to get done in a fast manner, and you throw more money at it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but throwing more. My point was going to be throwing more money at it doesn't make it go faster. It doesn't mean that you'll actually make it there. It just means that you threw more money at it. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just makes the program more expensive.
Right.
Right? I mean, look at Constellation. We threw a lot of money at that. That went quite literally nowhere. It was a paper rocket.
Right.
So what does throwing more money at any government? So the core argument here is big government spending is the only way which we're going to get off this rock. But I guess my question is it? If we threw, let's just use NASA. Let's ignore China for a minute. Let's just use NASA because they're the ones who got us to the moon.
Sure.
If we tripled NASA's budget, would we actually be able to get humans on Mars? Or is that just giving more money to a program that is so bogged down with politics?
Right.
And I'm not bad-mouthing NASA at all. I'm simply asking the question, are they so political now and so afraid of failure that we can no longer advance?
No, I mean, that could be the fundamental issue right there, is that it doesn't matter how much money you throw at any given thing. It's the way that the money is getting spent and where it's getting spent or what it's getting spent on, where, how that's filtering through the entire organization with which to make X, Y, or Z, right? Go ahead.
I was going to say TK 101 brings up another valid point. Let's just say we give big government the money and we repeat Apollo.
Right.
Is that really what we want? Apollo was flags and footprints on the moon. Do we want flags and footprints on Mars?
No, we want to be living on Mars.
But if we want to be living on Mars, that's not what the government did before. So why do we assume that that's suddenly what they do?
No. I mean, agreed. It's about the organization and how they choose to push which button and when, I guess. Does that make sense? Like, a smaller company might be a little bit more nimble, might be willing to take a couple more risks, might be better organized, might, look at the big guys who came before them and are willing to look at those chances that they took or those mistakes and improve upon, right? Like, so theoretically, I don't know. I don't know. Unfortunately, we don't have answers right now.
Well, there's no crystal ball, and we just figured we'd start the conversation because maybe should we be spending our time and energy in this new space revolution? And Neil deGrasse Tyson, from what I've heard him say, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but from the impression I get from him is that he is absolutely, we need to give this money to NASA because it inspires people, it can get us off the planet, and it shouldn't just be human exploration of the stars. It should be robot. It should be all of it. It should be anything that puts humans out into the cosmos and allows us to move quicker, faster, better, more awesome. And he seems to be adamant that it's NASA. And I'm not so sure.
Right. Well, Ziegler and Vax both make excellent points that are complementary to one another, which is to say that today's NASA is not the NASA that got us to the moon. And then Vax also says that today's Congress is also not who got us to the moon.
And I think actually Congress is more important than NASA.
Right.
Right, because NASA has to do what they are told to do by law.
Right. So, I mean, in that sense, if the people who are making the decisions are making the terrible decisions, it doesn't matter how much money and how smart and brilliant and wonderful the people who are, the scientists behind it really are, as opposed to a private company that can say, well, we don't have to do that, so thanks, we're not gonna. We're going to go this way instead.
I actually think in America, at least, this is a fixable problem.
Sure.
Because I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but the people I know that work for NASA would jump at the chance to do something for Mars.
Sure.
Mars, right?
Yeah.
They are all about putting humans on Mars. Yes, let's do it, but they can't. It's that NASA's hands are tied.
Right.
Now, there will be some inefficiencies in NASA just because that's how it is.
Yeah.
But maybe we just accept that. Our problem isn't necessarily NASA. It's our elected officials. They're not putting the emphasis on human spaceflight. They're not giving the budget necessary to NASA for human spaceflight.
And they're putting too many restrictions.
And they're putting too many restrictions on NASA, right? So it needs to be much like in the Apollo era of get us to Mars. We're not going to tell you how to build the rocket. We're not going to tell you how to save jobs. We want you to put humans on Mars. But the next sentence out of their mouth should be, and sustain a colony there, or sustain... sustain permanent resident, however you want to word that. But the next part is and sustain.
Right.
And we don't elect officials that think that way. So the easy way to fix this is to communicate to people around you that this is important, and ask the elected officials what's their stance on it. I don't know if that's going to make. I mean, if we elect those people, then it will happen. But you have to get the word out there, and other people. The constituents of the elected officials have to care too.
Right.
Once they care, the elected officials will care. So it is absolutely fixable problem. It's just raising awareness and getting people to do that. We'd love to know what you think in our comments. Leave them on YouTube, leave them on spacevidcast.com, whatever our social media stuff is. We've got a brand new Google Plus page, which is kind of awesome. Links to our YouTube stuff. It's pretty sweet. Actually, I'm really loving Google Plus.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that in After Dark. But we'd love to know what you think. Should it be the governments that do it, or has society moved beyond that to the point where private enterprise actually can do it and will be better served by private enterprise?
Right.
B, if private governments do it, is it going to be NASA, or is it going to be someone else? Is it going to be China? Who's going to do it?
Right.
And how and why? And C, why do you think we should be doing this at all? And maybe we can add that back into the document. So like I said, leave your comments. And speaking of comments, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, comments from our last show. Oh, this will be exciting.
This is good.
This is fun. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
I need to fix that, don't I? It doesn't actually go all the way to black, does it? I can see it in my preview screen. It's probably awkward when I'm talking and I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's the one. And everyone's like, well, what is he looking at? I have an entire matrix view of everything that's going on directly down into my left so I can see. And cut back to it, right? Really quickly. Just, yeah, that annoys me.
Not all
That
the
annoys
way
me
to
to
black.
no end, not all the way to back. All right. Comments. Oh, I have to hit this button.
Yes.
Comments from last week's show. Let's start off by a longtime viewer and I was longtime caller as well, I guess. I'm not sure how to word that one.
Like aggravator?
U5KO, who also had a comment in last week's show, who said, watch this from my Android tablet, just so you know. Continuing the iPad tablet war. Yeah, I will continue to say I will use whatever term is most recognizable by people. And when you can afford an iPad, I look forward to you being able to upgrade.
Even our director laughed at that one.
I am in trouble.
Oh.
I am in trouble. I am in trouble.
You should be. You should be. Next commenter.
Users left the chat room. U5K. I don't understand what's going on. Next comment. Taylor Rant says, "Why did you guys monetize your videos to make money?" We were talking about actually at the very end. We always talk about subscribing to Epic and how it helps produce the shows. Because, as we travel around and do different things, it costs money to travel and it costs money to buy the equipment and stuff like that. We actually do. We monetize it, just so everyone knows, we monetize in a couple of different ways. First, we have ads for non-Epic subscribers. So when you're watching YouTube, you'll see a pre-roll ad, you'll see pop-up ads, mid-roll ads. Some of you will use ad blocker. I understand the ads are annoying, but it does help pay for the show. So we'd appreciate it if you actually did watch the ads for realsies if you're not an Epic subscriber. If you are an Epic subscriber, we're going to give you an ad-free-ish experience as best we can. We found, it used to be truly ad-free. We found that some of them are sneaking through. We're doing our best to make sure that they don't.
Yeah.
And certainly the stuff like the Vax Headroom ad will stay in because it's space related.
Part of our show.
Part of the show. It's not actually advertising anything. It's just a nice little break kind of cool thing. So you still get that, but you don't get the traditional advertisements that stop the video and everything else. But the Epic subscriptions are what help us the most because it's kind of this known revenue. And combined, that actually, we don't quite break even. So we still need our day jobs to make this go. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And we are okay with that. Now, the more money, here's what will happen. Let's just say we got 1,000 new Epic subscribers tomorrow. We will still just barely break even because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that money and throw it all right back into the show. We're going to get new gear. We're going to find new cool places to go. We're going to find new ways to inspire you guys. I'm going to get more posters going. We're going to get more concurrent projects all going on at the same time because that's what we do. We love doing this. We don't do it for you, we do it with you, right? There's an entire community. That's why we do the show live, so we can join everyone together and have fun and talk about space and get excited about this stuff together. So that's how it goes, and that's why we kind of beg you to become an Epic subscriber so we can do more stuff, because there's a lot more stuff that we want to do. My vision outweighs my budget by a fantastic amount. So there you go.
A wee bit.
A wee bit. So please, buy Epic. This one comes from Dutch Universe, and I love that the entire comment is almost as long as his name, which is SLS for Space Launch System is science fiction. Go back 1 year, and I probably would have agreed with you. However, they're making such good strides on it that I'm not sure.
I'm just not sure anymore.
I don't know.
I just don't know.
I don't know if it's going to go the way of Constellation.
Yeah.
I'm 50-50 right now. So it looks like from a technical perspective, the rocket will work just fine. At least the 70 metric ton rocket will work just fine. But will it ever actually get built? And at $1 billion to fly each time, how many times will we fly it?
Yeah.
Don't know. I'm reserving judgment for that one. So we'll see.
And then eventually we can just point to Dutch Universe and be like, oh, haha, that was funny. Or, yeah, no, he was right.
Yeah. It's hard because we've already seen what happened with Ares 1 and Ares 5, which were part of the Constellation program. I mean, you watched it. It was sad. You watched it. Constellation was inspiring, but never funded. It wasn't fairly inspiring, but never funded.
A great patch, a great logo.
Really great. Actually, it
really did.
It was a really good vision with a lot of bad politics.
Yeah.
The new lunar rover, new lunar landers, new exploration vehicles, new everything. This was getting us back out there and, doing all of it in one bit by bit, piece by piece. First, we can't really afford the lander, so that's gone. We can't really afford the exploration vehicle, so that's gone. We can't really afford the next-gen suits, so that's gone. So before you knew it, you were left with 2 rockets, and we're like, we can't really afford the big rocket. So all we're left is with the Ares 1 rocket, which was the one thing that we already knew how to do. It was like the one thing that we already had plenty of.
Yeah.
There was no real point to it, and all the space geeks were like, the one thing we didn't want you to keep is the one thing you kept. At that point, I was done. I was out. I was outsies. But Ares 5 I was always excited about.
Right.
Which is why SLS I guess where I come from with SLS is that they burned me once with Ares 5.
Right.
So, I'm waiting to get burned again with SLS, but if they can make SLS go, it actually is exciting. I want them to build SLS. I'm fearful that they won't. So let's see if the chat room had anything.
Oh, well.
Anyhow, we'll do that after dark. All right. Okay. Bobbert for him says 2 separate thoughts. Maybe you should have a studio audience. This was in regards to us not being able to bring people in. That's not actually a bad idea. And NASA is crowdfunded. Well, there is a difference between kickstarting, where you can optionally pay for something you believe in, and taxes, where you are mandatorily required by law to fund something. Very, very different. I have thought this often, where what if we abolish taxes as we know it today, and instead you still have to pay the exact same amount of money in, but you get to choose where it goes, right? You say 100% of my funds go to NASA. What would the landscape look like? Because you got to think about it, right? You got to give a little bit of it to infrastructure.
Yeah, I want something for my roads, for my schools, for my garbage collection, or whatever. All of those things, those basic things. I want my bridges to not fall. There's that.
But I want my science to happen too. I want to progress our knowledge forward, and I want us to be the leaders in next generation stuff, so we can bring the bright minds over here, so we can continue industry, which develops jobs and everything else. It's the snowball effect. So, I've constantly wondered what would happen. That's just a pipe. That's not ever happening, at least not here in the U.S. But I constantly wondered.
When Ben rules Mars, that's what's going to happen. Just for all of you to look forward to that.
All right, and our final comment from last week's show comes from Glander Bronderg.
Yep.
One of the things you don't want to get across with Kickstarter is that you're a, quote, poor, unquote, multimillionaire who is begging ordinary people for more money. I think the Golden Spike Kickstarter was an example of just that, as I've seen some Hollywood personalities try and do the same thing and have epic fails. On a more positive note, even for failed campaigns, it's possible that your crazy idea is really bad, and lack of funding is a great indicator you shouldn't go that route. So for those who don't know, Golden Spike did a Indiegogo campaign. They were looking to raise $1 million or $200,000? $200,000, I want to say it is.
It was $1 per every mile to the moon.
So that would be 200. Oh, I don't remember.
Right.
200,000.
So it was that
it's not
much.
$1 million.
We have a very smart audience. They know.
Yeah.
So that was the dollar amount that they were looking for. I don't even remember why at this point, which is really terrible. Was it just? I mean, it was going into
$240,000. There you go.
Okay, but it was going back into Golden Spike. Yes.
Yeah. So that was part of the problem is they didn't. So Planetary realized what they needed to do from a crowdfunding campaign. I don't think Golden Spike did. They just kind of figured, hey, everyone's just as inspired as we are. Here, give us money, and that doesn't work. Right? It doesn't. It just straight up, it doesn't work on any topic ever.
I mean, that was one of the things that when we were sort of talking about what makes such a great campaign, what the Planetary Resources campaign, why it was so fantastic, they had a very specific goal in mind. They told you exactly what the money was going towards. They had really awesome things that they were sort of giving you. It made sense as to why they were asking for the money. They very clearly were like, hey, we don't really need all of this money, but this is why we want to do this. And they had a really cool outcome. I really felt like Golden Spike sort of was like, yeah, money, space things. This is cool. Do stuff. And we were like, what?
Yeah.
It felt like an entire conversation of just buzzwords, so none of it made any sense to me. And it's kind of unfortunate. But so, like Glander says, on the positive note for the failed campaigns, that possibly you have a crazy bad idea, and that the lack of funding, you can point to that and say, well, nobody cared because...
I'm not sure that's true, though, because Golden Spike actually has a good idea, but they executed their campaign incorrectly.
Well, it also made me feel like some of my money might be going to, like, India, when they get up to the moon first. Like, well, wait a minute,
But
what's going on here?
I think, Planetary Resources is a really good example of how to do it right, because they are actually backed by a lot of very big names. They're backed by billionaires, right? They don't need $1 million. They don't need $1 million to launch
Right.
a satellite. But they do actually need this $1 million because this satellite isn't part of their regular constellation. This satellite is
Right.
to get you engaged in space. They've got their whole other constellation that they're paying for. The design of this has already been paid for. They've already done all of that. What this $1 million is this takes one of their satellites, drops a screen and a camera on it, and says, look, we're giving this to you, the people. So here, have fun. I mean, here's one of our
So
telescopes.
brilliant.
I mean, do what you want with it. Use it for schools. Use it for education. Let's get this low-cost thing out there for everyone to use.
Right.
And even though they have a lot of big pockets backing them, I think it's very admirable that what they were doing, and especially the price point. Because consider you're not launching that thing even for $1 million, right? So when you look at it, you go, oh yeah, no, this totally makes sense, and I get something that I want out of this. And that's why I'm super excited about the Planetary Resources thing.
It's amazing. Somebody tweeted out, "Gee, Mom, can I have my own space telescope one day?" And her response is, "Sure thing, darling. Just click here." And she had a link to the Kickstarter, to the Planetary Resources Kickstarter program.
right.
I thought that was really awesome.
That is our show for this week. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, Spacevidcast Epic is what helps us produce this show and or watching the ads, but we prefer Epic. If you'd like more information on Epic, you can go to spacevidcast.com/epic, and as part of that subscription is, by the way, $10 per month or $100 per year, which I don't think I mentioned earlier. As part of that subscription, we're going to give you a bunch of shows that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. So not only do we try to make it as ad-free as possible, ad-free-ish, ad-free-esque, we'll call it, we also give you access to shows like After Dark, which is coming up next. After Dark is the show after the show. It's completely unscripted. We may talk about space, we may not. There are sometimes we have guests on and we just kind of talk with them through After Dark, and it's really interesting conversation.
Sometimes we do roll call.
Sometimes we do roll call. Oh God, I will never live that down. And that is only available to Spacevidcast Epic subscribers. That show is called After Dark. In addition, we have a ton of conferences. We've got actually one with Buzz Aldrin that's coming up that will be posted for Epic subscribers. Hasn't gone up yet. But a bunch of really cool stuff there. So spacevidcast.com/epic. Sign up today. Helps us continue to produce the show. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. And if you're watching live, stay tuned. The live episode of After Dark is up next.